everyone, how's it going? Hope you're having a wonderful day. Hopefully I earned your sub today, and if I didn't, maybe the next video will, or if you are subbed, thank you so much. You're beautiful and the MVP of my day. So Final Fantasy 16's gay romance disappoints. Alright, so let's get into this. I haven't read this article yet, so I don't think I can discuss this without getting into spoilers because Dion is introduced during halfway through the game, and his narrative is extremely important to the overall story of Final Fantasy 16. So if you don't want anything spoiled, chances are, well, this is a spoiler right here, but the main narrative points that I'm going to probably discuss, click off this video. I don't want anyone to get spoiled. I think Final Fantasy 16 is wonderful. I did my review for it, played it from start to finish. I'm about to play it on Final Fantasy difficulty. Well, I am playing it on the hardest difficulty, which is Final Fantasy difficulty, but I love this game. So let's get into it. I already gave the warning. So as you might just reveal, Dion and Terrence is one of his protectors, a knight dragoon who's supposed to protect him, are in a relationship together. Terrence is, I believe, lowborn. I'm not really sure, but they take the idea of class very seriously in this game of where you're born in society, and Dion is a prince. So obviously dating someone who's not of royalty is looked down upon. So he kind of hides his relationship from everyone except for Terrence, who sees that. It's a really lovely relationship because during a very critical point in the game, Dion does something unspeakable. He's basically the dominant. Well, he's not basically. He is the dominant of Bahamut. So he can basically turn into Bahamut. And if you know anything about Final Fantasy, Bahamut is one of the most powerful summons in the entire franchise. He's constantly depicted as one of the most formidable and one of the most lethal summons there is. So yeah, no small feat. And Bahamut, he loses control when in Bahamut's form and is responsible for a mass calamity that results in hordes of his people dying. And he feels devastatedly responsible for what happened, as he would. He is loyal to his people. He does have a strong sense of justice and he wants to protect the innocent. But unfortunately, because of this, he has to separate from Terrence and knows that he is essentially going to his death in the end of Final Fantasy as he tries to redeem himself for the horrible things he does. It's a very, very heartbreaking scene where you see Dion wants to be with him. He wants to be with Terrence. He loves him more than anything, and Terrence loves him. But unfortunately, Dion puts his duty above everything else. In his words, he always clears his debts. So in his eyes, he has a debt to repay for the calamity he's caused and to help Clive in succeeding in his mission. It's devastating. It's a really profound moment, and you really wanted them to end up together. So let's see what this Kotaku article says about it. Back in May, it was announced Final Fantasy XVI would be banned in Saudi Arabia. Officially, it was developer Square Enix refused to alter scenes in the game for its territory, which led to rumors and speculation that the 16th game in the long run in RPG series would have explicit gay sex scenes. Wait. I mean, it also has technically an incest scene. I'm not gonna say, I just went into spoilers about that, but I think I can go into this. It's kind of going to help my argument. Odin has the dominance for Odin has a kind of weird relationship with his mother. It's kind of disturbing. It's like Game of Thrones disturbing, which spawned memes and earnest excitement. Turns out, yes, there is a same-sex couple and implied bisexual hero, but one of the two involved men is Final Fantasy 16 standout characters. The romance never goes so far as the internet speculated, and the game seems hesitant to show it all. I mean, I guess they showed it all. They do have a sex scene with several other characters, but I don't know. It's kind of hard to have one when, again, Dion and Terrence's relationship is forbidden because, again, he's a prince. Terrence is not of royalty, so it's not like he could just disappear and they can bang each other. He's always on the battlefield. He's always taking on military objectives. He doesn't have any private time, not to mention his people are suffering. Through one of the major scenes with him and his father, you find out that his people don't have enough food. They're waging a war that they don't know if they can win. They're sacrificing people. So can't really sneak off and, do the deed. Like throughout the game, it's clear that he's hiding it from his father and from his people because, again, royalty with lowborn is kind of not looked highly upon. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but that's how I viewed the scene. Spoilers for Final Fantasy 16. Dion and Terrance's relationship has promise, but it falls by the wayside. I would disagree, but we'll see how the person argues. One of the best things I liked about Terrance and Dion's relationship was the fact that Bahamut is finally in a relationship. I mean, by technicality, it is Bahamut. And Bahamut is always seen as like the, father, the like Odin. I know Odin is a different character, but, he's kind of seen as like the all-father of the summonings in a lot of ways. It's always Ifrit and Shiva who's depicted in a relationship or at odds with one another. So I kind of like the idea that Bahamut is finally given a relationship in some degree. It's not full, but, it's there. Dion Lesage is a lot of things. He's the prince of the Holy Empire of Sambique, beloved by his people for his empathy in an otherwise uncaring monarchy. He is Bahamut's dominant, able to call into Dragon's power and transform into him during battle. Bahamut is a gay icon. Sorry about that. Wait, what? Bahamut is not a gay icon. He's just... Dion is gay, not Bahamut. Bahamut is just the form he takes as the dominant of Bahamut. It's not Bahamut. It's like with Odin. Odin is like the summons and the icons in Final Fantasy are completely in control of the people who are able to prime. Prime in meaning is that they turn into the summon in itself. So it's not Bahamut, it's Dion. I think this person is misinterpreting the story because the summonings don't have a will of their own. They are the person who they are being primed from. And he's also the lover of Sir Terrance, his devoted right hand. Yeah, Terrance is a dragoon, one of his loyal fighters. From what little we see of the relationship, Terrance is almost exclusively characterized by his devotion to his boyfriend. Not true. He's actually also devoted to his people as well, just as much. Like, he stands by Dion as he would because he still loves him, but he and the rest of the Dragoons also stand by Dion in order to overthrow the monarchy, which has become bloodthirsty in sacrificing their people. So it's not just Terrance, it's all of the Dragoons who stand by Dion. In fact, there's a hunt with a former Dragoon who attacks Clive because he believes that he killed Dion. In the grand scheme of things, that feels like a missed opportunity, but I got to admit I am captivated by the desperation and unbridled loyalty Terrance demonstrates when he stands alongside Dion. Yeah, it's the same thing Jill has for Clive and Yotne has for Joshua. Yotne is his, not his servant, but she's definitely like his loyalist companion. She is a servant, but she's the number one person Joshua trusts above anyone else. Like, she clearly cares for him like a brother and a sister. It's a dynamic ripe for fan fiction and players filling in the gaps. Okay. And if I didn't write every day for my job, I'd probably be inclined to join in. Dion is nothing but caring for Terrance, but have been an easy for a royal and his faithful knight to fall into toxic, abusive tropes. Okay, I can agree with that if you want to add some more drama to it. These two adore one another, and while Dion's entire family dynamic is destructive fantasy politics made corporeal, I do agree with that. It is pretty, by the numbers. This guy has clearly broken the cycle and put himself in the self-work to be more than a prince to Terrance. And that's also true. Like, he puts Terrance above everything else, except his duty to his people. Like, he loves him to such a high degree that, again, when he has to go his separate ways, it's clearly just all over his face that they just don't want to be apart from one another. All this wonderful character development and potential ultimately makes the places where Final Fantasy 16 pulls its punches all the more disappointing. Okay, let's see. Taking inspiration from Game of Thrones, Square puts a spotlight on the physical intimacy of Final Fantasy 16. There's not a lot of what you would consider overt sex scenes. Well, I mean, yeah, they have to be, they have to be tasteful about it because, they can't show just raw sex scenes. Like, for example, despite Naughty Dog still has a policy, not Naughty Dog, Sony has a policy against certain intimacy scenes in their games. Like, yeah, you can point to The Last of Us Part 2, and some games do get special treatment, but I feel like they pushed it to the extreme they can. I could be wrong about that, but, you know, this is a PlayStation exclusive, so maybe they gave them also leeway, but there is a lot of skin in this game. There's not a lot of what you would consider overt sex scenes, but there's a lot of romance happening, characters kissing and being naked together, and in most cases the game is comfortable viewing it all from up close. However, Dion and Terrence are an exception. Yeah, you never have that intimate scene, but you always show them like in private quarters. Like whenever they're intimate with one another, they're always alone and together because again, he's royalty and Terrence is not. As far as I can tell, Terrence is not royalty, so that's kind of looked down upon. Like, you can't be in a relationship with someone who's not royalty in this game. It's highlighted throughout Final Fantasy 16 about the idea of how important royalty is. When the two share a kiss halfway through the game, the camera moves away from them, and we see it at a distance. When moments before we are watching a scene of Terrence tending to Dion's wounds at an intimate angle, the two very clearly kiss, but at a distance. The scene is shot from what would make it easy to think they hadn't. I mean, not really. I mean, if this is the scene they're talking about, you can clearly see they're kissing. Like, no one would disagree with that. Like, they're literally, their mouths are together. His hand is over the back of his neck and his is at the waist. Like, that's kissing. Just because you can't, like, go full close to them doesn't mean no one would interpret it as anything but a kiss. I read that part. The tragedy of it all is Dion and Terrence aren't together through much of the game, so much there's not much opportunity for Final Fantasy 16 to make it right by expanding further on the relationship and giving them more chances to express the clear love they share on screen. Yeah, because Dion is literally the frontline offensive for the war that's going on. They make it very clear that Dion has to be on the front line. He has to constantly be in combat just in case Titan shows up. If Titan shows up, he has to be there, right there, ready to prime and become Bahamut. Like, he's constantly in military meetings. He's constantly, doing stuff. They can't just go away and start having an intimate scene. Yes, they have that between Beatrix and Hugo, and they have that between Clive's father and his mother, but that's because they're literally royalty. And with Beatrix and Hugo, they are dominant. They don't have, and they're kind of like not taking a full part in the military affairs. Like, they make it very clear that Beatrice and Hugo don't care. They don't. They care about each other, or to a degree, Beatrice only cares about her own self-interest, but they don't really care about the people. Dion does. He clearly cares about his people. He puts them first in everything. So he's going to put that as his number one responsibility. His relationship is unfortunately second for everything. As the dangers of Dion's mission escalate, he sends Terrence away to repay a debt he owes and to keep his lover out of harm's way. Yeah, you literally just put the counter argument to your entire argument right there. It's an affectionate scene that underscores the dire stakes of Final Fantasy XVI's war, and it also emphasizes the devotion the two have for each other. You're literally arguing against your point. Like, everything here literally goes in par with everything I'm saying. Like, he has to go and fulfill his duty for his people and repay a debt. He can't put the person he loves most in danger. I mean, even if you had the power of a god, last thing you want to do is put someone you care about in danger, and you're also the front line of this entire war that's going on. Terrence is willing to do whatever it takes to Dion asks of him, and Dion knows that and uses it to push him out of the line of fire. It's a beautiful, tragic, antics moment that would make any heart sing if it hadn't already been disappointed by how little this relationship was foregrounded and how scared Final Fantasy 16 seems to sit with it. What are you talking about? You literally put into your essay how profound their relationship, how much it hurts them to be apart from one another, and how Dion has to put his duty as Bahamut and for his people and the debt he feels he owes to his people above his relationship. To me, that shows incredible character for Dion, that even though he wants to be with Terrence above everything else, he understands that there is something he has to do that is more important for the world itself. And that takes a lot of strength. Like, if you have a choice between being with the person you love most in the world and doing your duty, it takes a will of pure titanium in order to do your duty as opposed to being with Terrence. And I can only, like you see from Terrence, he understands. Nothing he says will fix it. Nothing he says will convince Dion because he knows him so well that it'll just make it that more painful if he tells him to stay, to come away with him. Because he knows Dion won't do it. He knows Dion will say no, so it's easier for him to just say, okay, I will do this for you. Like, that's how I read the scene. The Final Fantasy series seems to be getting gradually more comfortable with its own innate queerness, with characters like Andrea Rodney being an unabashedly queer man in Final Fantasy VII Remake's Honeybee Inn sequence. He proclaims the beauty of all about expressing oneself regarding of any perception of gender, and dances the night away with Cloud without the camera once shying away from the flamboyant display. I mean, in Final Fantasy VII Original, Cloud literally bathes with a bunch of naked men, and then, gets one of their G-strings, so we could put that into there. Let's see. I'm trying to think of another. It's been so many times of Final Fantasy that I've played. Was there one in Final Fantasy IX? I feel like there was one in Final Fantasy IX with the love letters that were kind of misconstrued about Eiko sending it to Zidane. I could be wrong about that. I'm trying to run through my head about all the loving relationships, but I can't do that on the spot. It's hard. But I would argue they do have a point here. But when it comes to actually portraying the intimate expressions of queer identity, such as a kiss between two men who love each other, Final Fantasy XVI falls short of its own unapologetic ideals, while lingering on Dion straight contemporaries. I feel like you're wrong about that, because they show that intimacy and relationships don't need that type of raw sex in order to be strong and profound. The fact that Dion and Terrence's relationship can convey that in a way without using sex just highlights how strong it is. And I would argue the fact that they were able to show such a profound romance between these two without having to use skin and pure sex in order to convey that sense of intimacy does wonders and showcases how talented these choreographers, animators, writers were able to express this sense of love and devotion to one another. It's definitely better than Aloy and Seika, where their romance just feels so forced, how they just fell in love in a matter of hours, and she's just she's basically just a carbon copy of Aloy, whereas you see here with Dion and Terrence, they're just compatible to one another because of their devotion to one another. They're both warriors, they both understand their duty, and they also understand where their position is in terms of this entire situation. Dion being a prince and him being a dragoon. So I don't know, I feel like I disagree largely what this person is saying. So let's read the rest of this article. Sadly, this is par for the course in the video game industry. While there's a ton of incredible work being done in the indie space, queer men and their relationships are still largely regulated to an option in AAA games rather than something a player is forced to reckon with, much less a role they have to inhabit. Okay. Sure, games like Mass Effect and Assassin's Creed may let you play as a gay man, though the latter series has twice now undermined that in Odyssey and Valhalla. What are you talking about? I'm confused. Wasn't romance options in Assassin's Creed always optional? You didn't need to engage in them. Actually, in Odyssey, you do end up in a heterosexual relationship and eventually have a kid, so alright, so against that, but you can end up in a homosexual relationship in Valhalla, and in Valhalla, where you could just engage in sex with other men or other women if you play as female Ivors. But I guess this person is asking for a character that is homosexual that you have to play as, which I guess, I wouldn't be against that idea. I can see that there would be pushback. There are always going to be people who push that back, but I don't have any problem with that. But male seeking male intimacy is almost never forefront of the AAA games unless it's sought out by gay players. Well, it's not only sought out by gay players, other gamers also like it. I've had gay romances in Mass Effect and Dragon Age. I think Dorian is one of the best homosexual characters ever written. So it's not just gay players. I'm a straight male, straight Middle Eastern, Guyanese, Muslim male, and I seek out the homosexual relationships in these games. In fact, in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, the first chance I got to sleep with one of Ivor's friends, I went for it because I wanted to see the romance option. Same thing in Cyberpunk 2077. I literally just hooked up with everyone. If there was a romance option, I went for it. Whether it be with the girls or the guys, all to it. There are some options that are only for homosexual players. Like, for example, God, I am really bad with names, but one of the female characters is strictly lesbian, so unless you played as a female V, you can't romance her. Man, I don't know what the hell is going on here. A lot of eyes were rightfully rolled when Ellie from The Last of Us was lifted up at the first queer protagonist in the AAA game, because there are plenty of characters that could be LGBT plus before her, but when you actually go back a look at the list of queer characters in video games, most of the time those characters are the options for the players to express themselves rather than sole perspective the game offers. So kind of went against your argument. I forgot about that. Ellie is a lesbian, and she's in a relationship with Dina in The Last of Us Part 2. She was also in a relationship with Kat, which is an Unsee character that gives her the tattoo. And she's also the first character that Ellie spoke about her infection to. She was also in a relationship with Riley. So technically your argument now falls apart, because now you're strictly saying about gay men instead of like, just putting them together as just homosexual characters, because, Ellie? I forgot about Ellie, so I'm sorry I forgot about that. But yeah, it kind of fails your argument, because Ellie is a very popular character that happens to be gay, and no one had a problem playing with her. In fact, a lot of people in The Last of Us Part 2 would rather play as Ellie than Abby, so take that for what it is, I guess. The choice is welcome, but engaging with stories that center queer characters and experience by default, the way so many stories do with straight characters, as a natural step that video games still have trouble taking. I mean, I wouldn't say they have trouble taking, it's just like the expressive direction that they want to take. Yeah, is there going to be pushback? Absolutely, but as we saw with Ellie, people are open to the idea of homosexual characters as protagonists. I had no problem with it. A lot of people didn't have any problem with it. Even if Dion and Terrence's relationship had gotten more screen time and the cameraman didn't suddenly sprint to the other side of the room when they kissed, what is your problem with that? I don't get it. It should have been solved the problem. It wouldn't have solved this problem. Dion isn't Final Fantasy 16's protagonist, Clive is, and his romance with Jill is given plenty of focus, even if one of the least compelling relationships in the game. What the fuck are you talking about? Clive is the protagonist. Of course he's gonna get more screen time. What are you talking about? Like, it's like in God of War. Would you expect Freya to get more screen time than Kratos? Or in Halo, that Cortana would get more screen time than Master Chief? He's the protagonist. Of course, his relationship with Jill would be the more heavy focus in terms of the romance. Why are they going to do it with a supporting character? What? Okay, now you're losing me. But the fact that Square Enix feels gun-shy in the most intimate moments of the game's gay relationship is a symptom of a larger issue. How is it a larger issue? He's not the main character. Why would they put his relationship with Terrence on the forefront? Like, why? In fact, Jill doesn't get that much screen time in comparison to Joshua, which is Clive's brother. Do you have an issue with that? In fact, Joshua and Clive's relationship plays such an incredibly profound role in the game. Like, his love for his brother. It's like... I'm just like... the person's losing me here. The video game industry is quick to slap a Pride logo on its social media post or sell Pride-branded merchandise, but the biggest franchise is still terrified to put queer people in the front and center, especially men who didn't like to especially men who like to kiss other men. I don't get what does this have to do with this sentence? What does that have to do with this sentence? These are two very different things. Yeah, I disagree with this. I agree with this, actually. 100%. But what does that have to do with this? Like, again, Dion is not the main character. Clive is. Like, what's your problem with that? Like, Like, he's given plenty of screen time, enough that the only other character, like I stated, is Joshua, who gets more screen time. So it's confusing. Like, you're angry that they didn't put Dion as the most central focused character because he's gay. Isn't that special treatment? So because he's gay, he has to be given special treatment? Like, why? Like, their relationship doesn't need that much screen time in order to express their love for one another. Like, they did it extremely well of showing how important they are to one another. I know I'm going on verbatim here, but I don't know. For me, they were one of the best romances in the entire game. Like, they're second to Jill and Clive because Jill reminds me so much of Tifa, and I'm a big softie for Tifa Lockhart, but their relationship is just as intimate, just as beautiful. Like, the fact they had to separate from one another and had to go their separate ways, it's just as difficult as when you see that Jill sees that Clive has to also do the same thing. It's on the same level of love for one another. Like, I don't know. Like, I just see it as two loving people who don't want to see the other get hurt, but know that they have their duty that has to be done. We shouldn't be looking to Final Fantasy to save us. You shouldn't look at any video game to save you. What? It's a video game. Like, yeah, you can look to inspiration to these media outlets like entertainment. A lot of people look to Batman, Wonder Woman, Superman, Spider-Man, Spider-Gwen, all these characters as figureheads in order to boost your confidence and, you know, get strength from, but they shouldn't be integral to building your confidence of. Broadly, queer people shouldn't be looking to any corporation or price of media as a barometer for where queer liberation stands in the face of conservative movements seeking to strip the rights of queer... What? Okay. Like, they're starting to go left field with this stuff now, especially the onslaught of attacks being levied against the trans community. We're talking about Final Fantasy still, right? Like a video game? Well, when is the political stuff... Why is the political stuff getting into this? This is a video game website, right? But in the world where we're constantly being barraged by real-world hate and regressivism, acceptance within media can sometimes feel like the only measurement of acceptance we have. It's a video game. It's so it's a shame to see Final Fantasy 16 clearly want to express that, but fail to commit when it counts. Oh my God, it doesn't need to commit to it. It's there to tell a story about putting your duty first above your own personal like. There's so many themes in Final Fantasy 16. Putting your duty first above your own personal needs. You want to be with the person you love. You can't. You have a duty to accomplish. You have to put the selflessness in your actions to try and save the world, even if it costs you your own life. God, I don't know. But it clearly wants to express that, but fails to commit it to where it counts. Queer men are still wanting for their Last of Us Part 2. If you're a gay man and you're somehow watching my video till now, first, thank you so much. Are you waiting for a video game to give you, like, support? Like, as a straight guy, I've never looked to video games as support for my heterosexuality. As a Middle Eastern person and a Guyanese person, I've never looked at black characters or Middle Eastern characters as a sense of strength for myself. Am I the only one who thinks this way? Like, I just want to play a game with good characters, good story, and gameplay. I just want to play a good game, or read a good book, or watch a good movie. I don't need to feel represented. Yeah, when we see something that we really like, we end up putting ourselves in those stories. But for the most part, you watch and you play these things to be entertained by them. I feel like if you need these in order to support yourself, in order to gain the confidence, in order to be who you are, that you have some major issues that you need to overcome. Because these are entertainment things. Yeah, I made the argument about characters giving you the confidence to be who you are, but they shouldn't be that in that regard. Like, they should just be stepping stones in order for you to become who you are later on in life, so you can finally build that confidence and express who you are at its core. Like, yeah, I look to Batman for strength in the sense that he can do all these amazing things and sacrifices so much, but I don't say what would Batman do, like what would Jesus do. I just say, okay, yeah, if Batman can do it, maybe I can accomplish that too. But he's still a fictional character, and if they wanted to make Batman into a god or a skinny dude or someone with 20 pack, they can, because he's fictional. Ultimately, it comes down to you. And if the biggest games can't even stand in proximity of two men's kissing unless the player has expressed desire to initiate it, that's not true. It's a cutscene. You don't need to initiate it. You literally watch it as a cutscene. I don't think we'll ever get to it anytime soon. I'm really confused by this article. Like, it's a mix of political statements that have nothing to do with the video games, kind of misleading information. On top of it, I feel like it loses the idea of what true love and intimacy actually is. It's kind of stating that you need to have this type of bare bones skin in order to express that level of intimacy and love to one another, when in reality you don't need that. In order to express intimacy and love, you have to showcase that in a profound way that expresses emotions that people can relate to. It doesn't need to be two people banging each other, or you don't have to show naked scenes, because here's the thing, Hugo and Beatrice, yeah, Hugo loves her, but she doesn't love him. She's actually shown that she doesn't, like, through her facial expressions, that she doesn't like him in that way. She's just using him. She really loves Sid, and she's trying to convince Sid to come over to her side, to be like her. And yeah, it's shown why she loves him is because he saved her from being basically a sex slave. And he always expressed to her to be herself, to be her own woman. She can gain this strength on her own will, and she eventually does, but she feels personally betrayed when Sid goes off and, you know, becomes the leader of the bearers and tries to save the very slaves that the empire that she lives in tries to enslave. And yeah, I don't know, like, as I stated before, if you can express intimacy without using sex, I feel like it just characterizes your skill as a writer even more, especially animators and choreographers, which they did exceptionally well. But let's read some comments. Alright, I didn't click comments. He's not the main character. Like I said, I'm not sure how much screen time you expect him to have, show off, and his partner. Exactly what I stated. The story is about Clive, and Dion takes up at most 20 minutes of screen time. What did you think they could do with the small amount of time? Exactly what I stated. Like, the game had a weird problem with how it builds up different characters, making them seem like they would be more relevant, and then they aren't. So I'm not surprised people expected such characters to be more developed. Yeah, actually, that's a good argument. Some characters like Hugo are shown to be much more developed, but then they end up, like, just, you know, flopping the second you kill them. That's it. Yeah, the camera pulled comedically back during the kiss scene was so goofy, especially since every kiss in the game was front and center. On the plus side, they seemed great together, and Dion fucking rules. I agree, Dion rules. Again, I think it's the reason they pulled back the camera, and this is my own argument, is that they want to showcase the secrecy of their relationship because, as I stated earlier in this video and reiterate, Dion is of royalty. He is of royal blood. So, you know, they have to showcase this in a secret manner because if a royal prince is in a relationship with just a soldier, it doesn't look good because, you know, you're the son of the emperor. So you being in a relationship of someone who's not of royal class, it's looked down upon. Agreed, the camera pulled out totally took me out of the moment. That's just my argument, but I can see. But that's it. I think this video is, oh my god, 16 minutes, so I better end it. You can read all about this below, but my closing statements for this, I think this article is poorly argued. Like, I think that as a minor character, they showcase him and Terrence's relationship in an extremely profound and very emotional way. They highlight how much they love each other. They showcase that Dion puts his duty above everything else, even his own desires. And ultimately, even though he ends up sacrificing himself for his duty and the greater good, his last moment with Terrence was one of the best moments in the game in terms of pure intimacy and love. Similar to Jill and Clive, it was one of the best expressions of love and really highlights how important these relationships are and the differences between relationships that are fraudulent, like the one with Hugo and Beatrice, and with Clive's mother and their father, showing that their relationship was also based on kind of just, it wasn't there. You can tell that she didn't really care. She was just there for the sense of royalty and the class empowerment that she gets from it. She does think that anyone of lesser born is just tools to be used. But regardless, I feel like similar to Jill and Clive's relationship, Dion and Terrence's relationships highlights how profound these types of loving relationships can be. But unfortunately, when you have greater things that you have to do, sometimes they have to take a backseat so you can accomplish those for the greater good. But that's how I saw it. Tell me what you think in the comments below. I love to hear other people's opinions. This video went a bit long, but hopefully you watched it to the end. If you did and considered subscribing, thank you so much. And if you consider disliking after watching the entire video, that's also thank you for that too. At least you gave me a chance and watched the entire video. Till next time, thank you for watching. You're all awesome. Goodbye.